our veterans.
The data will be able to tell us how many people have an active DD-214.
Okay. All right.
You want me to go back 1 or 2 years? Is that what you want me to go back?
Just something. Just let me know how we're doing on the employment of that those individuals. All right. Any other questions? Thank you. You really helped us on making us feel better. All right. Part of the interim charge number 6 is members during the regular session. I failed to bring forth the Texas Forensic Science Commission, and so I was kind of caught off guard when all the Texas Forensic Science Commission issues took place in the last 18 months or so, and I think that we should take up the Texas Forensic Science Commission and their oversight. And so I've asked them to appear, and those that are here with the forensic science, I've been told that Dr. Watts is here, and Dr. Adams, and then Dr. Carrington. Is that correct? If y'all are here, you want to come up on the panel, and if there is Leah Tomlin here. I don't know Leah, Ms. Tomlin. We asked her to appear, and then we had asked Mr. John Bradley, and I met him one other time, and I don't think Mr. Bradley is here. So, members, welcome to our committee. We appreciate your service to the state. You certainly have an interesting subject field that you study, and so on. And I think just from on my behalf, I'd just like to begin by, is there anyone that would actually be the senior member on the commission who wants to begin? Just state your name and who you are, and maybe give us a little bit of background for the record. And Dr. Adams, we'll just start with you.
Yes, sir, and thank you very much for allowing us to come and speak to you today and give you some updates on the Texas Forensic Science Commission. We appreciate this time. My name is Gary Adams. I'm a professor of veterinary pathology, Texas A&M University College of Veterinary Medicine. I served as a commissioner with the Texas Forensic Science Commission. And I didn't bring any prepared notes. I understand that you have some questions for us that you want to go over. And so I wanted to be available to try to respond to those questions in behalf of the commission as one member of the commission. There are 9 members, and obviously I'm not speaking for the entire commission.
Dr. Adams, how long have you been on the commission?
Since 2005.
2005.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And
my name is Dr. Sarah Kerrigan. I was appointed to the Texas Forensic Science Commission by the Attorney General in 2007. My background is that I'm a forensic scientist. I received my original training as a forensic scientist 20 years ago at the Scotland Yard Forensic Science Laboratory. Clearly I'm not from Texas, as the funny accent indicates. And I am the appointee from Sam Houston State University, so I'm also a professor at the College of Criminal Justice at Sam Houston State University, which is the reason for my appointment, but I'm also a practitioner and a forensic scientist.
All right.
I'm sorry, did you say you've been on since 2007?
That's correct, yes.
And Dr. Watts, you're a former commissioner, or you?
Yes, I'm Aliece Watts, and I am a former commissioner for the Texas Forensic Science Commission. I was appointed by Governor Perry in 2007 and was removed in 2009.
All right. All right. Thanks for being here. One of the in the interim, I went to a hearing with Senator Whitmire, and Mr. Bradley appeared, and I sat in on that hearing, and Mr. Bradley reported to the members of the committee that really he couldn't really move forward because there weren't any policies in place and no rules, and so therefore he couldn't move forward. And so I would like to, if you could, someone could say, this is what you've done in the last 6 or 8 or 9 months, or you weren't organized. Maybe, Dr. Watts, you're the longest tenured, I presume. Maybe can you address the organization of the forensic science? Are you now organized and have rules in place to do your job and take minutes and to a record retention program, all sorts of things? So how is tell me how the Forensic Science Commission is operating.
Well, I'm no longer on the commission, so I'm going to have to address the situation when I was a member. First of all, the commission, by statute, had very limited scope and power. They didn't have subpoena power. They can't demand documents or testimony. They didn't have any rule-making authority, so they can't mandate or regulate laboratories or the practices in laboratories. And also, which I think is a good thing, is that they have no input on the guilt or innocence of a person in the cases that they are investigating. They are only allowed to investigate allegations of misconduct or wrongdoing in regards to forensic science testing and testimony. During my tenure on the commission, I felt that the commission had made much progress in adopting policies and procedures, that complaint forms for individuals and anonymous complaint forms were prepared and were incorporated into the workings of the commission. There were many letters that were formulated of acceptance or rejectance of complaints. A website was prepared, and in that website there were not only items of interest for the commissioners, which would include agendas and minutes, but also the complaint form was on the website. So that was a very big process that was undertook by the commission. Also, there were, in order to get word of the commission out to the laboratories and to the stakeholders, there was a poster that was prepared and was distributed by the commission to each forensic lab in the state. It kind of mimics what the OSHA poster is, where it tells you that if you see instances of wrongdoing, that you can contact the Forensic Science Commission, and the contact information. There were procedures that were prepared and were developed to solicit expert examination of evidence. Hiring protocols were developed in conjunction with Sam Houston State University. The Attorney General's office was represented at each meeting to make sure that legal processes and protocols were not violated. And all of these protocols and procedures were in place prior to Mr. Bradley being appointed as chair of the commission. Now, the newly adopted policies and procedures...
Do you mind if I interrupt you?
Surely.
And members, if you have questions, feel free to ask. So how did you, from being a new agency, how did you come to develop your rules and your tools? Did the Attorney General's office help you? Did the Ms. Tomlin, she was the organizer? Did the commission just know how to do it, or how did you get yourself where you think that you were in a good shape prior to Mr. Bradley's arrival in having the rules in place to do your job? How did you get to that place?
Mr. Chair, could I ask a question before she proceeds with that answer,
Sure.
please? I guess the question I have before you proceed, because you didn't hide or emphasize the fact that you were removed from the commission. Why were you removed, and is any of your testimony today a reflection on the action that was taken to remove you, and could it reflect the answers that you could potentially give today?
No, I was removed, I guess that might not be the...
Your term expired.
My
correct?
term expired,
Right.
and I had indicated to the governor's office that I would be willing to serve another term, but the governor's office indicated that they were going in a different direction, which is what they told me, and that is why I'm no longer serving on the commission.
Okay, so your answers today would not be biased in any way?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, thank you.
Right.
No, and that's important also as a forensic scientist, is that you do go towards you tell the truth. You don't sway one way or the other.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
yes.
Right. And my point in you, I want to know, prior to the new commission, were we organized or not? I mean, we didn't have have you ever appeared before a legislative committee before? I mean, over this issue, as a forensic scientist with the Forensic Science Commission?
No, sir.
Not before the Senate committee or any other committees? Is what I'm assuming none of you have. And we missed the boat during the regular session of not, with us having oversight, of not learning more about how the Forensic Science Commission works. And so
Well,
you're helping me get up to speed on what the duties are and what your goals are and how you got there. And so my question was, how did you get there? Who helped you get there to make sure that you were complying with the intent of the legislation?
Yes, sir, and that's one thing that we did refer to often, was the legislation, in trying to determine what our responsibilities were and how we were going to acquire those or to successfully make those come into...
In a commission meeting, you did,
Yes.
and so your commission meeting would last for 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it is that you work through it? How long would your meetings last?
Oh, typically most of a day.
Trying to work out the details of getting organized.
Exactly, yes.
And how long did it take you to get organized? Were you the first commissioner? Were you the first commission that came in, or the second commission?
Second,
Second.
yes.
So were you a totally replaced slate of commissioners, or was there holdovers? When you were appointed by the governor, were there holdovers on that?
From the original, yes, from the 2005, yes, and
Okay.
Dr. Adams was one of those.
Okay, and so Dr. Adams, you've continued as a holdover?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So I'm just trying to get on first. Mr. Frost?
Dr. Watts, I just want to be clear on something you said, what I thought I heard you say earlier, and I just wanted to make sure I'm clear on this. Did you say that the commission has no subpoena or compulsory power to require a crime lab to cooperate with the commission?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. Since you're not on the commission, I'll ask you now, do you think that's a good policy decision for the state to make, for the Forensic Science Commission to have no compulsory power to require a crime lab to turn over records for independent verification or audit or review, peer review about their methods and methodology?
Well, first of all, in the investigations that have already occurred that I was a part of, we have received unbelievable cooperation with all of the entities that we have been working with. But it is my concern, yes, that...
It's a concern of mine as well, because I wrote myself a note when you said that. You don't have any compulsory power. I mean, the reason we created this commission in the first place is because of some discrepancies, we'll call it, that went on in some various crime labs around the state.
Correct.
And so that's a concern for me as well. I do a little bit of criminal defense work as an attorney, and you know, it never occurred to me until these things came to light that some of the abuses that were happening in certain crime labs actually occurred. And so it seems to me, even if it's not needed, that the legislature should give this commission compulsory power over whatever crime lab they're looking at and dealing with, if for nothing else, to give the public a little bit more ease about that this commission can get any documents, can talk to anybody they need to in order to independently verify this whatever particular crime might be looking at is operating the way it should be.
Yes, sir. I think that's a wonderful idea.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get on the
No,
soapbox.
that's why we're going through all this. Okay, I'm kind of up to speed.
Okay. The newly adopted policies and procedures essentially cover what was already in practice. So what the new policies and procedures that have been written down are essentially what was already in practice. It was just not written down. There were a few additions in the new policies and procedures, specifically committee appointments and formations of new committees. In the 2 years that I was a commissioner, the commission members themselves have taken upon themselves to spread the word about the commission to the stakeholders of the state of Texas. Again, the posters went up in every lab in the state. And also, we have had numerous speaking engagements to various attorney organizations, scientific meetings, and other groups in order to let the people know that there is a commission that is going to investigate any allegations of misconduct or wrongdoing. The legislation itself requires that there is a report that be submitted to the governor, the lieutenant governor, and to the Speaker of the House of Representatives. So coming before this committee here is kind of a surprise to me because I did not realize that this committee had oversight over the Forensic Science Commission. It was not, I've read the statute a couple of times and I still have not seen any reference to this particular committee. So nothing against this committee, but I'm happy to be here.
That's why we're here to communicate.
Exactly. Let's communicate. Okay, one of the things another thing that is of a concern to me is that the report of Dr. Byler, who was helping us to investigate one of the cases that was before us, was released to the public before the commissioners had a chance to meet on it. And I would also like to bring to your attention that this is a concern that was continuously brought up at commission meetings, is that we had concerns that people would hesitate to bring complaints to us because they would know that immediately the Freedom of Information Act, the public information, would allow that to be released to the public before it was ever investigated. So this is a concern that I had while I was on the commission, and I still have it today. I think that the reports that are submitted to the commission should possibly be held away from the public until at least the commissioners are able to determine if the case is founded, if there is enough evidence to that it falls under the statute that is that has created this commission, things such as that. I just hesitate to accept a case knowing that there is going to possibly be a request for the information to come out into the media before the commission has had a chance to address it. I do have a list of concerns. I have a concern that the commission had prepared a series of roundtable discussions with stakeholders that was going to be held all around the state. I have a concern that this is not going to continue. I'm hoping that Dr. Kerrigan and Dr. Adams will continue with this process. The roundtable discussions were to be held to gather information from the forensic scientists, from the judges, from the district attorneys, from the defense attorneys, from the law enforcement agencies. What can we do as a commission to promote forensic science, to make sure that it is as accurate and as transparent as it possibly can be. I'm hoping that there are going to be more bench forensic scientists that are appointed to the commission. The commission, what I mean by a bench forensic scientist is someone who is actually doing testing. I mean, I appreciate the expertise and the experience that all of the members of the Forensic Science Commission has. I think that it would be important for them to also hear the opinions of people who are doing the work in the trenches, getting their hands dirty on evidence and doing the testing and the testifying. I also have a concern that the chair of the commission is an elected official and might be seen to have political influence on the direction of the commission. I think that there shouldn't be any elected officials on the commission. I think that this particular commission has a responsibility to the people and to the forensic scientists of the state of Texas to be politically neutral.
Does the statute require political office stakeholders on the commission?
No, sir. It does not require that. It does not prohibit that either.
Mr. Chair, I want to make sure I understand your testimony. Your testimony is that the nature of this commission should preclude any elected official serving on it because an elected official may have an agenda that's different from the exact science which you're supposed to be enforcing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Do forensic scientists, are they stakeholders?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
But you're a stakeholder, but I don't understand why you wouldn't want the elected person as a stakeholder. In other words, the elected class. You're saying, you as a forensic scientist have a stakeholder, but where is the response back to the public? How do you get feedback to the public without someone dealing in the public arena as being on there, whether they're elected or not elected? Is that I could see the issue of a district attorney being a stakeholder and having a rule that says forensic evidence should only be, as a policy, we want the commission to adopt a policy that forensic evidence should only be retained for so long after an incident. Is that correct? Could you make that rule that you're going to, when you say you're going to go to see all the stakeholders, you could come back and say, well, we only believe this evidence is DNA is only good for 90 days or 90 years. Could you make that? You could make that policy as a commission, and you could tell all the labs your evidence that you've had for 90 days is not good evidence anymore. Is that what you think? You could do that? You could adopt that as a policy, correct?
I don't think that the statute allows the commission to make rules for forensic laboratories. I don't think that that's one of the statutory mandates for the commission, and I don't know for sure.
And I hadn't read. I'm sorry. I read the statute when I went before the Senate hearing. Representative Bernie, you got a question?
Sure, but finish your...
So you don't believe that you have the authority to tell a lab whether they're doing a quality job or not? I mean, aren't you going to set up the quality of what the forensic lab is doing? If I remember Senator Whitmire correct, is he said, I set this up because the police lab in Harris County wasn't doing a good job and somebody needed to make sure they were doing it better. I think I'm correct.
Yes.
And so he set this up as an oversight to ensure that the policies and directive of that particular lab would be have some oversight. And so if I would assume that you had the authority to make a rule that says, look, you have to put this document in a icebox, or or if it's not placed in the icebox, you can't use it as evidence in a criminal case or in a civil case or whatever it is. So I assume that's what kind of where you were headed and what you were tasked to do.
Mr. Chairman, I think I might be able to share a little insight on this, as well as Representative Driver and Burnham. We were all here when this was set up, and the genesis was because of some abuses that happened at crime labs. However, I think what this commission was originally started up as a way to help set up standards or recommend standards and policies and procedures for crime labs, but it was not originally set up to be the enforcement arm or the arm of the state government, which says, yes, crime lab, you're good, and crime lab B, you're bad. It was not set up that way, but that's something for this committee and the legislature to make some policy decisions about. Is that what we want this commission to do, or do we want them to just continue to be a commission that just gives recommendations? Would you agree with that, Representative Burnham?
More or less. I think the way I would ask the question of the witness is, it's your understanding as a former commissioner that you didn't have the authority by law to set minimum standards, although you are in a position to develop recommended standards. And I think it is an important question for us to ask. A lot of times you settle for what you can get in the legislative process the first time around, and maybe it's now time for us to look at allowing the commission to establish minimum standards that will be adhered to in the state of Texas, because we have a specific public interest, i.e. the correct prosecution of the law.
Yes. If that's the recommendation of those of you who are doing the job. You heard Colonel McGraw say, I'd like to recommend, that we make these kind of changes, and that's, we're here to listen. And where is that? I'll give you this, and but what we have our charges from the speaker after we're selected for the committee in this.
Mr. Chairman, before you do that, would I ask a follow-up question? When y'all were talking about bench forensic scientists, are these people that own labs? Are they work in labs that they own, or what does that term mean?
A bench scientist means that they work on the bench. They do the test. They actually look at the evidence. They look at the bloody T-shirt. They look at all of those things. They do the drug testing. So more of the workers than the management hire. The people who.
Where would they be working? I mean, would they be working for the forensic commission, or would they be working in labs and the rest of the time?
Police departments?
Yes, they work in laboratories. Yes.
Okay. How would we handle the situation if they were investigating a lab where they worked, if they were on the commission?
That actually was addressed by the commission, and it is in the minutes that person would recuse themselves from.
Required to recuse themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
What we are, the speaker, so first of all, sets up the committees, and then he appoints members of the committee, and he gives us certain jurisdiction. And so the committee is to have 9 members, and we will have jurisdiction over all matters pertaining to law enforcement, number 1. Number 2, the prevention of crime. 3, provision of security services by private entities, and 4, the following state agencies: the Commission on Law Enforcement, Officer Standards and Education. That's where you heard Tim testify. That's his agency. We have oversight over that. The Department of Public Safety, the Texas Forensic Science Commission, the Polygraph Examiners Board, the Texas Private Security Board, the Commission on State Emergency Communications, and the Crime Stoppers Advisory Council. And I believe that we heard from every one of these agencies during the session the 81st session, except the forensic science. And so here you appear for us
Here
to
I
get
am.
up to speed. And so the statute says this, but we have to, because of its set up, the speaker says we want you to have oversight over that. And so we all have a dilemma of what it is and what the expectations should be of an agency that it is in its infancy.
Right, and that's the communication that we need to.
That's correct. And so, now, do you have other things you want to continue with?
I just have two more little things. One of my recommendations is the current schedule of meetings is once per quarter, and I think that this is a little too infrequently, because the mandate is to hear these cases as quickly as possible. I also would like to see that a scientist serve as a chair. Since this is Forensic Science Commission, I think that a scientist should be the chair of the commission. These, again, are my own opinions, since I am not on the commission anymore.
Well, I would suggest that you write us, or where I take it, those are legislative suggestions and fixes. And if you want to put it in writing, fine. If not, we take it as it is. But as an oversight, if you'll put it in writing, it'll make it easier for Kirby and Pam and us to write up the recommendations to members of the House that this committee will make those following recommendations, and somebody on the committee will introduce the legislation to try to make those corrections.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the time.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we leave, Ms. Watts, can I ask a couple
Yes,
questions?
sir.
Thank you. Ms. Watts, I think you're the first member or former member of the commission to ever appear before a House body, and I have learned a lot in your testimony. I want to have a better understanding of exactly what transpired at the January meeting. I understand that there was an intent to allow you to have the opportunity to speak as a former member of the commission to the commission, and that you were not allowed to speak. Could you give me an accurate understanding of what occurred?
At the January meeting, the agenda was prepared, and I was not on the agenda. At the end of the meeting, I asked, just by raising my hand, if I could say a few words, and I was told that since I was not on the agenda, that I would not be allowed to speak. So it was just as simple as that.
Was that based on it was not in the public notice posting of the agenda? Is there not a mechanism for the public to speak to the commission?
Generally, the public comment section was included on all previous agendas, but on this particular agenda, it was not included. So there was not an agenda item that said public comment.
Did any commissioner raise the issue as to why the public comment period item was not on that agenda for that particular meeting?
I did at the close of the meeting, yes.
So you raised the question as to why there wasn't a public comment opportunity, and who did not allow public comment at the time? That's not a tough question. The chair, right?
Who are you addressing the question to?
Well, I was originally asking the question as Watts, but the answer was
I answered purely because it was an issue that I raised at the end of that meeting, because it was the very first commission meeting we'd had where there hadn't been an opportunity for public comment. If you look at the agendas for the previous meetings, and we've met 12 times since the commission was funded in 2008, we've always had a public comment period. But this was the first meeting where it didn't appear on the agenda, and that occurred because the commission wasn't privy to the agenda before it was finalized.
So at the 13th commission meeting, they did not allow for public comment. What do you think, Ms. Watts, the commission members' preference would have been? Do you think a majority of the commissioners would have liked to have had you have the opportunity to speak, to share a perspective as a former member?
I really don't have any opinion about that. I don't really know what the overall consensus would be. I do know that there were several people there that would have liked to have said something, and one of the
In addition to yourself, not just former members, but the general public wanted an opportunity to speak at that time, but the general public, for the first time in 13 meetings, was not allowed the opportunity to have a public comment time.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Members, any other, you're still going to, we may have some other questions for you, but do you have a question?
I just have a comment, because there's obviously something going on here that I'm not privy to or not understanding. So I'd like maybe some explanation at some point, because I'm totally confused about the comment and not being allowed to come in, and the fact that you, even though you were not asked to be reassigned, the initial terminology are removed. So there's obviously some dynamics that I don't understand. Off the record or as a conversation, I will be inquiring about this. So thank you.
For me, just a follow-up comment from Ron is, you know, how are they organized, and you know, that question is, for 13 meetings they were organized with an agenda that had public comment, and then all of a sudden we've changed it with no public comment. So how do they, who makes that change, and what's the authority, and so what you described is you weren't aware of the agenda till you came to the meeting to see it not on the agenda as a public comment. So as commissioners, it was a surprise to you not to see it.
We saw it at the same time the public saw it for the first time.
And just as a matter of record, when as the chair, I posted this committee meeting, and it's posted for the public, but the posting says the committee will meet to hear invited testimony. So what that means is that we could have a lot of people lined up that want to comment about anything you've heard today, but in the essence of time to get through our agenda, as the chair, I posted it as invited testimony to make sure that we get through all the invited testimony. But it's a prerogative of the chair. If someone wants to appear and bring a witness form up here and say, hey, I would like to have this, that I could say to the committee, listen, we're going to have public comment. They could all say, well, we've done our duty, and they could leave, or they could stay and hear it, but just as a prerogative of that, of courtesy of time. And so, and most city council and commissions have public comment. It's just for us, I put invited testimony. And when we come to the invited testimony of not being able to speak, y'all sit through the DPS executive director appearing. Now, that's the third largest state agency, you know, $800 or $900 million budget. And I simply ask for your executive director, Ms. Tomlin, is her comment, is her title executive director? What is her title?
She's the commission coordinator.
Okay, she's a commission coordinator. Is she an employee of the commission?
She's an employee of Sam Houston State University.
And is she obligated, if we invite her to appear, is she obligated to appear like when we invite Colonel McGraw to appear?
I don't know the answer to that.
Who's answerable to the legislature?
I think we all are, but I can't speak for the commission coordinator.
And who decided that the title of commission coordinator?
I think the commission.
The commission did.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we ask the chairman, Representative John Bradley, to try to answer the questions of what we're asking, you know, is it do you have the prerogative not to show up? I mean, do you think that we would have communicated today if all of you would have not been here to find out, to answer the questions of the committee? And I think that we want to move forward and improve the commission and hear what we're having. But there's certain areas that only maybe Ms. Tomlin could answer, that maybe you couldn't answer. Are there questions that Ms. Tomlin can answer that y'all could not answer?
I don't think so.
Don't think so, no, sir.
The commission coordinator provides administrative support for the commission.
Just to go to the
Make sure that the commission members receive the complaints, disseminates information, post the agendas, documents the minutes at the meeting, post them on the website, post them in the register so that the public are aware. So her role is administrative.
Dr. Kerrigan, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Kerrigan, and you may have just answered my question. I was going to ask, because you and Dr. Adams said that y'all weren't aware and that there was a public comment section until the same time the public saw the posting. Well, maybe I've got two questions. How far in advance of the meeting was that agenda posted?
The day before. The day before.
Well, actually,
it's got to be up for 72 hours.
Yeah,
but
it's posted. The new agenda, I think, will be posted on the 12th. That's for the meeting that we have scheduled for the 23rd. I believe it's 10 days, and that's a requirement.
Okay.
So
All right.
we would have seen it about that time.
And then we would have had an opportunity to make comment on the agenda heretofore every time we were asked by the chair, do we have any other agenda items to add? Every commission member was asked.
Right. I'm on a commission, and I usually get to, well, I've always gotten to see an agenda prior to it being finalized and posted. And that's one of the things I was going to ask y'all. Were y'all given the opportunity as commission members to see that agenda prior to it being posted?
No.
Okay. And then lastly, do you know who actually made up that agenda or wrote that agenda?
Chairman Bradley.
The chairman did? Okay. Is that the usual protocol for how the agenda is done?
No.
How is the agenda normally done?
It's always the chair of the committee, and by the way, I'd like to go back just a bit to say we were organized, we were a fledgling committee, we made a lot of progress, we had very good leadership, highly organized, efficient, and addressed many of the cases quite efficiently, even though we didn't have every procedure codified for exactly how you processed it. We were able to do that previously, and we had full communications among all members of all commissioners and the chair. So this was a bit different. In fact, it was a lot different than the way we'd operated previously.
Was that the first meeting that Mr. Bradley was the presiding officer over?
Yes.
Okay. And would it, I don't want to put words in your mouth, would it be fair to say that the commission was certainly appeared to take a different tact, maybe that's not the right word, but was operating differently than it had in previous meetings?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really would like some explanations, particularly, is this all about that case, the burning case where, of the man who was convicted of burning his kids, and then, this is all, even for the public listening, it's just a gap in between somewhere. It's like we're talking in space about some particular issue, but you're really not talking about anything. We're just kind of throwing darts at it and missing the middle, but...
Well, as the chair, I wasn't here when the law was written.
I wasn't either. But
and so I'm what John Bradley testified before the Senate committee was that he could not do anything because the commission needed to be organized, and that it was not organized, it did not have its paperwork in place. Am I correct? Were
could
y'all
not
there?
operate as a commission, period, ever, or just...
I watched the hearing, so I heard that.
But that's what he said.
Dumbfounded, correct.
Right. So I don't want to. So what he said that you were not organized, and what I'm hearing the commission say now, two current commissioners and a former commissioner that, in your opinion, you were organized at the time. When John Bradley said you weren't organized, you felt like all the hard work that you've done, that you were organized and you were prepared to have a hearing at any time and to present any case, whether, I mean, there were, I think there were, y'all may remember, I'm just shooting from the hip, maybe 80 or 100 complaints, and y'all had all met and narrowed it down to maybe there were 20 or 30 good complaints, and you had been working through those complaints, and you were doing your duty, and then all of a sudden, John Bradley says, I can't answer any questions, and we can't move forward for almost, now you're saying a whole year, because we didn't have our ducks in a row, and so it's your testimony and the commission's and former commissioner that you feel like you were organized at the time John Bradley said he wasn't organized, correct?
Yes, and we were making progress. Could we be better organized? Well, yes, it's a commission that's making progress meeting by meeting.
Let me ask you this. You said codified. Are there now some documents that you can give to this committee that have been prepared that have put everything in an organized state? Do you have a document that says this is our personnel policy? This is a document that says this is our record retention policy. This is a document that says here's how we're doing our minutes. Do you have all that? I understand that you may have a hearing in Irving, and so now you're organized. So what is it that you can give us that's different today than it was whenever that hearing occurred?
Well, in fact, those things aren't in the current policies and procedures that were approved back in January. But I'd like to go back because I can tell you, for example, if you were to look at the agendas for our past meetings, and there was an agenda for every meeting for the 12 meetings that we had prior to Chairman Bradley taking over the commission, and there were minutes for each one that documented all of the substantive discussions. You have to bear in mind that the commission wasn't funded until 2007, so at the very end of that year. So we didn't really have funding to meet until December 2007. By April 2008, that's just a few months later, policies and procedures had appeared on the minutes, and it was solidified on the April 2008 minutes. We had developed a reporting form that had been reviewed by the commission that ensured that all complaints were dealt with in a uniform and consistent manner. We developed a website. We'd established a 1-800 number. We'd established email accounts for the commission. We'd established an office for the commission, and we had just hired a commission coordinator who would be our administrative arm, who would handle all of the paperwork. That's a tremendous amount of progress from December 2007 to April 2008. By April 2008, we were looking at complaints using these procedures that had been developed. There was not a document that was written that was called the Policies and Procedures Manual. But did we have policies and procedures? Absolutely.
Okay, but do you have a policy manual now?
We do, yes.
Okay, and that's what I would like for the committee, or if you'll get me the copy of the manual that you didn't have then we know that you're moving forward, that even though you were doing it on a shoestring, now you've developed some policy manual that your executive director or your coordinator can look at that policy and say, this is kind of how I need to organize it.
And we don't have copies of the updated policies and procedures manual because we reviewed it. We reviewed the document in January at the January meeting, and the commission made many changes to that document. The Policies and Procedures Manual was developed by the chair of the commission, and we saw it 2 days before the commission meeting for the first time. It was emailed to us, and we had to review it at very short notice, and then we spent almost the entire meeting going through the policies and procedures and recommending changes because there were a number of things that the commission wasn't brimming with enthusiasm about. We had to make changes to improve that document, and that took up most of
So you don't have that final
Not
document?
the final document.
Okay, well then, so you don't have one.
I actually do have a copy, but because I requested it specifically from the commission coordinator, but it hasn't been disseminated to the commission.
Okay, well, who makes a decision to disseminate the policy manual? And have you voted to adopt it?
We saw the version of the policies and procedures manual recommended changes, and I assume that it will be represented at the next meeting, and that we will recommend additional changes, discuss those, and...
So we don't have a manual?
There is
It's a draft.
There's a draft.
No, but but you understand where John Bradley said, when did we have that hearing before Whitmire? Back in the last summer?
July.
Sir? July. So we've been several months,
Yes.
and John Bradley says we have to have this, and we keep delaying, and you're saying you have the manual, and who has does John Bradley have carte blanche of running the whole show without input of the commission members?
Apparently.
Well, I would say the commission members, we're not timid about speaking up and saying what we believe, the way this commission should handle the evidence, and it should be based on science. So we had a lot of debate at the last meeting, I'll just say that.
But how did John Bradley get his authority? What is this? I mean, maybe somebody on the commission. I'm assuming John Bradley is an equivalent to each one of you.
That's right. He's one of us.
How is the presiding officer chosen? Is the presiding officer appointed, or is the presiding officer basically elected through the commission members?
It's appointed by the governor.
By the governor.
Okay.
Governor appointed.
So he's only, you used the word, he's only the presiding officer to work with the commission. He's not the executive director to say this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it this way or the highway. But that's the way it's running.
But, Mr. Chairman, I'm sure it's somewhat similar to position that you would have as chairman of this committee. You set the agenda and have sole authority over the agenda. You may seek input from other committee members, but I believe, from what I understand your testimony to be, that the presiding officer has final authority over what's on the agenda. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. But it was always done collaboratively with input from the
Previously.
commission members. One of the things that was very different about the original policies and procedures manual or document that we saw is that it gave the commission chair or the presiding officer unilateral decision-making authority for the commission. And that was hotly debated at the last meeting, at the January meeting, because the commission was not comfortable with that. It was a real change in leadership style.
Mr. Chairman, I see in our books that, in our committee books, that Mr. Bradley and Ms. Tomlin were invited to be here today, but declined. Was the chair given any reason why they couldn't be here?
No.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sure we'll have another interim committee meeting at some point in the future. I would ask that the chair invite them again. I would like to hear from the presiding officer and the commission coordinator in light of what I've heard today.
Well, thank you. I agree with that. I think
I would like
concern.
I would like the committee to give them another opportunity to see if our committee hearing and their schedules can be coordinated.
We'll put that out. I have some questions that I have written down, and it says, my question is, procedurally, how well or badly do you think the commission was functioning prior to the change in the chairman? So the question is, was a commission, I've heard you say that the commission was functioning very smoothly, using what you were led to believe by even being advised by the Attorney General, that what you were doing was to the letter of the law and open government, and that you were moving forward in such a manner that by, you said April, you were already hearing complaints. So there wasn't a pushback. So the answer that I'm hearing the two commissioners and the former commissioner saying is that they believe procedurally that you were functioning properly, not badly, nothing that was in the headlights, that you had all your ducks in a row. All right. Did you previously feel that the commission needed the guidance of written policies and procedures because it was operating beyond its mission or inconsistency?
No, but written policies and procedures are good for any commission or board. So I don't think anyone's opposed to there being written policies and procedures.
But you didn't need the guidance of written policies or procedure because you were operating outside of your mission or outside of your realm of authority.
Operating outside the mission.
In other words, there wasn't somebody, doing something way over here that with a verbal authority, and you say, oh, wait a minute, we have to have a written authority to bring everybody back under the guise. All right? Now, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram ran a story about the commission's policy requiring commission members to destroy all emails relating to the commission's work and to send emails you thought needed to be saved to the administrator. Can you tell us more about that policy? Ms. Watts, were you there when that policy about destroying emails was implemented?
Actually, no, that was after I was removed from the commission.
Okay, and do y'all know about the story? The Star-Telegram ran a story about the commission's policy requiring members to destroy all emails. Do y'all have an email policy now amongst the commission?
We don't, and I'm not familiar with the story because I don't really read the newspapers, but I do remember the instruction from the commission coordinator, and instructions from the chair are sent from the commission coordinator, not from Chairman
Do you think the chair has that authority to tell you to destroy emails?
Absolutely not, and I indicated in a telephone conversation with Chairman Bradley that I would not be deleting emails. And at the last commission meeting, I asked for clarification on our communications policy on this topic, so that if such a policy existed, it should be documented in the policy.
And so that's part of the parameter of someone running amok. So you need to have a written policy to say to the director or the administrator, look, you can't order someone to destroy emails.
For clarification purposes, the commission coordinator doesn't ever issue orders for the commission members.
Well, if the coordinator sent me a letter when I asked her to come before us saying she couldn't be here, and she gave no explanation, is that a proper response? I mean, should John Bradley have sent me the note and said, oh, by the way, she doesn't have to appear before the committee?
No,
Who makes that decision? I would think that that you as commissioners would want your coordinator, if we want to ask questions, would be here.
My point is, if the commission is instructed to follow through with something, there's a clear understanding amongst the commission members that is coming from the chair of the commission, whether or not it was Samuel Bassett, who was our former chair, or Chairman Bradley today.
All right.
Merely she's a vessel for communicating those
Does the
things.
commission have a records retention policy on file with the State Archive Commission?
You would have to ask John Bradley.
Okay. Who said it?
Chair, let me
Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to interrupt. I'm sorry. Why would we have to ask Chairman Bradley? You have, and I'm very unclear on this, so I'm asking the question, don't you have an employee, and isn't she the administrative person that's supposed to keep record of all of this?
Yes, and yes, she does keep records.
And
What I don't know is about the state archive. I don't know that technicality.
Yeah, it's, okay, very simply, state law. You were supposed to have a records retention policy. It's state law. I sued DPS over their violation of state law on records retention. And so we have every reason to be concerned about the line of questioning the chairman's asking right now about what your record retention on emails is. And I'm wondering, what does one have to do to get a copy of the minutes of your meeting? Because you're telling me the only person that is your administrative person isn't really a state employee, or is she?
She is a state employee because she works for Sam Houston State University.
And is an employee at Sam Houston State University. What does she not understand about being called to appear before a legislative committee to provide information concerning the agency she works for?
You would have to ask her. I don't know.
Well, that's very difficult.
Yes,
She doesn't
I understand.
come to communicate. And
But she's the person I would need to ask to get copies of those minutes, because none of you
The
were,
minutes are
They're
posted
on the
they're on the website.
all 13 of them.
Right, and there's also a link, if anyone, everything's subject to open records, and the commission coordinator spends a great deal of time processing those requests and sending out documents. And so, those documents are meticulously organized.
all right, but back
Now,
to
the 13th meeting is not posted on there,
Yet?
not yet, until the
The
minutes
minutes
are
have not been
approved at the
approved
next meeting.
at the next meeting.
And so,
So you're not aware of the records retention policy, so you have not voted. My next question, who set that policy? And what we mean by the records retention policy, you know, do you back up your emails every night? Or do you destroy emails every night? Do you destroy correspondence after 60 days or 90 days? You know, that's what you're looking for. Therefore, it becomes transparent to the public that it's on record, and that if you ask for an email tomorrow and you have a record retention policy that Ms. Tomlin is aware of, you send her an email, the next day she destroys it, and that's your policy, then we would be asking you, why is your policy that you're destroying your email? You know what I'm saying? So it's just that. So that was that purpose. And have you received any advice from the Attorney General's office that the policy is legal under the Open Records Act? So you don't know that. Who are the people at the Attorney General's office assigned to help the Forensic Science Commission, and what are their specific roles? Now, that's something that would be interesting to me.
I wanted to, can I go back to that former issue about
Sure.
the record retention? Because Barbara Dean has been our counsel from the Attorney General's office, and I know that we're complying with any of those requirements. We've never discussed the record retention policy at a commission meeting because we've been focusing on complaints and other issues. But certainly I'm familiar with state archives. I used to run a state crime lab, so I know statutes in other states where you have to adhere to record retention policies and their law. We haven't ever discussed those at a meeting, but I can assure you that we're abiding by those rules because Barbara Dean and her staff work very closely with Lee Tomlin.
Do you think you could get that on your 14th agenda, to have a discussion about records retention in public among the commissioners, to discuss whether or not you are complying with the law? You believe you are. Some of us are questioning whether or not you are, and it seems to me that it would be in the Commission's best interest to have that public discussion.
And we can make that recommendation
Right.
to Chairman Bradley.
In what we're following up, it says, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram ran a story that the Commission's policy requiring members to destroy emails related to the Commission work and to send the email. So we're saying, where's your policy that says you could do that? And if there is no policy, then you can't be charged to destroy them. And
And for the
Representative Frost?
record, I don't think that any commission members did destroy emails, because I think when we saw that email, we all thought that it was incredulous.
Right. Representative Frost?
I think I would add also that the policy and procedures is a liquid document. It's still in progress of being written and improved, and obviously this is one of the areas that needs to be addressed, and we'll be sure to bring that up and put it on the agenda of the next meeting. We'll request that it be put on the agenda. Let's say that. We'll request that it would be placed on the agenda. But
I'll be there, and I'll be speaking as a public member if it's not.
And we understand that. We make changes to our rules every session. We understand that policies and procedures can be fluid and should be changed when you can see that they can be improved.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Watts, I wanted to go back and follow up with something that one of your recommendations that you made earlier. And that was the recommendation that the presiding officer for the commission be a forensic scientist. Well, and let me first ask, is it your opinion that all commission members of the Texas Forensic Science Commission should be forensic scientists?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. So why would you want people who are not forensic scientists to be on the commission?
Because there's more to the investigation than just looking at this particular case. I mean, the two attorneys that are on the commission are invaluable in giving us details about how court proceedings occur and things like that. So yes, I think the makeup of the commission is fine. I just think that as it is focusing primarily on forensic scientists, that I think a scientist might be better versed in details about how things are working and things like what is a pipette and all of that kind of stuff, rather than a non-scientist.
And I understand exactly where you're coming from on that, but I guess if the presiding officer is there to set the agenda after consultation with the other members of the commission, and to move the agenda forward in the meeting, I don't see why. I'm having a little trouble following why it should be a forensic scientist be the presiding officer, or whether the concerns that maybe you have should be addressed through policies and procedures in the commission. I mean, I don't see, the presiding officer doesn't have any more weight on his or her vote than any other commission member. Is that right?
That's correct.
So if it's
Not
just
really, because,
okay,
for
because
example,
help me understand.
in the new policies and procedures, which again is a living document, we hope,
Right.
because I think that there's some content in the existing policies and procedures that we're still not comfortable with. It gives, for example, the presiding officer the authority to appoint people to all of the standing committees and to the investigation panel. So, yes,
That's a valid point.
one chair, one vote, correct. But does the chair have the authority to determine the makeup of an investigation panel? Absolutely. And that could
So theoretically,
influence what happens.
if you had a 3-person investigation panel and you've got 3 people on the commission which were not forensic scientists, you could have an investigation panel without a forensic scientist on it.
In theory, you could.
In theory.
Yeah.
Hopefully that would never happen, but in theory, you could. Okay. Well, I appreciate y'all working with me on that, because I just wasn't quite following why it should be a forensic scientist, in your opinion, as the presiding officer. Thank you.
I have 1, 2, 3, about 5 questions, and I'll try to make them fairly quick. And this is about the independence of the commission, where I'm driving. Are you really independent commissioners, or are you serve at the mercy of the chairman? So is there a policy in place that commissioners, except the chair, are not allowed to speak to the media?
We asked for clarification about that at the last meeting, at the very end of the meeting, because there was no communications policy, and we had been instructed not to speak with media, to forward all media to the commission office, to the commission coordinator. So again, that was one of the issues I asked for clarification on, and Chairman Bradley indicated that the commission members were free to talk to the media at that time.
We're not to speak to the media?
We're able to. We had been sent a written directive not to speak to them previously.
So you do not have a policy established yet?
We requested that a communications policy be added to the policies and procedures manual, but again, the updated policies and procedures haven't been circulated to the entire commission yet.
Who did the directive come from initially? You said
The email came from the commission coordinator, but as I said before, the commission coordinator does not send directives to the commissioners. That comes from the chair.
So the chair instructed the coordinator to send out an email to say that only the chair speaks to the media initially, and then it would rescind it
to forward all media contacts to the commission office, and one would assume that that was the case.
Okay.
Well, if you spoke to the media, what would be the penalty?
I don't know.
The penalty would be that you've chosen, to to zip your lips when you could be talking. You know, and it's important to me not to prevent any member of the committee or to speak to whoever asked them a question. You know, I find it hard that we could pass a rule or a law that says, okay, only the executive director of every agency can only speak to somebody, you know, to the media. I just think that that's something that I don't expect you to do. I hope you'll keep your independence, and that someone asks you the question, you're able to answer the question just like you are forthright with us.
And I hope y'all understand, we're not trying to beat up on y'all. It's a concern to us as the legislative committee with oversight, the public perception, no matter how well-meaning it might have been, if directives are given for only certain people to speak or emails to be deleted, it really undermines public confidence, and that's what we're trying to address and communicate with the commission on.
And those would be issues that you'd have to address with the person who issued the directive, because the commission was uncomfortable with those directives.
But you are the commission. The person can't, you can't give a directive to the other members of the commission as a member of the commission, can you? Don't you all vote to adopt your own policy?
Well, yes, sir, that's what we'd like to do on every one of those items on the policy. Debate every one and vote on every one.
Right.
And that was what happened in the last meeting, because the policy was given to us the day before. We had one day to look at it, and so we had a lot of debate in the policy. And you mentioned that we had chosen to not be independent and not speak to the press. Did I hear you say that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Your policy. What is your policy as a media? Have you all
chosen that? No, sir. No, that's still a work in progress.
But you could choose to do it.
I assume that. I don't think that'll happen.
Okay. All right.
I
So
think
you
we're
have not adopted a policy like that, and you're also saying that this is the commission on your non-binding guidelines of what you all have in place, this written policy. Do you feel like they're binding on you right now? The policies that you've been presented by, that I would like to receive the draft that you have now, so we as a committee could look at that. Is that a fair question, my attorney?
Well,
buddy?
It's not binding on them at this point as far as the letter of the law is concerned, but I think what you're hearing from the commission members here is that they want to certainly abide by the spirit of the law, and if they've made basic agreements as to policies and procedures, even though they've not been finally voted on, they want to try to follow those agreements that the commission has thus far made, and there may be some tweaks that still may be made to those policies and procedures, but you know, they're going to be fine-tuning adjustments, not major policy changes.
There could be a couple more that are that would be pretty important, and we'll be debating.
Right.
But I just want to say this too. You know, I know y'all are getting the brunt of a lot of these questions, but we did invite the chairman and the commission coordinator, and we will invite them again to another meeting to give them an opportunity, because I always want to hear all sides and viewpoints.
And there really aren't sides. I mean, this is when we voted on the policies and procedures at the last meeting, just to put it in perspective so that you understand the dynamics of that meeting, we have not discussed a complaint since July of last year. The commission had been operating in an organized fashion. We had been processing complaints. Of the 20 complaints that we've received, we have 3 that were currently under investigation that we would consider major investigations. They were dealt with uniformly, fairly, squarely, expeditiously. We were meeting every 2 months instead of every quarter, so we were meeting 6 times a year instead of 4 times a year. But when we approved those policies and procedures, I think that every commission member there felt that it was very important that we approve them so that we could move forward with investigations. So if you were to ask me if I agree with everything in the policies and procedures, I will say no. But was it important as part of a political compromise to move forward and get back to work? Absolutely yes. And Chairman Bradley agreed that that document would be a living document and that we would readdress those issues. Now, when we received the preliminary agenda, as we'd requested so that we could have input yesterday or the day before, that was not listed as an agenda item, review of policies and procedures, and to vote on those changes. And I requested that that be added as an agenda item so that we can address it. So those are the types of issues that we're dealing with. It's very much a living document. I expect there to be, again, active discussion about the policies and procedures at the upcoming meeting, and perhaps for the next 3 meetings until they're perfected, but not at the expense of doing the investigation.
Mr. Chair, may I ask, do you have a copy of the proposed agenda with you?
I don't.
There are a couple of things I'd like to know whether or not they're actually on that agenda. You just told me an item that's not on the agenda. Can you tell us from memory what is on the agenda?
From memory, reports from the investigative panels that were established for some of the ongoing investigations.
There's no public comment period. You already know that. I'll repeat that. There's no discussion of the policy.
How can we change that?
Well, that agenda was sent to the members of the commission
As a draft.
2 days ago, and I sent 3 pages of suggestions to the commission chair,
Including public comment?
including public comment and other issues I was concerned about.
Were any of your suggestions added to the agenda?
Well, we haven't seen the agenda yet.
It's still in work in progress.
What about the actual work? I mean, most of our time today has been on procedural issues, but you mentioned just a few minutes ago that you really haven't done any of the real work since August. What of the real work is on the agenda for this upcoming meeting?
Well, it's difficult to say because the way that we do business has changed radically. We used to meet as an entire commission and review complaints before we were there and have a healthy discussion about the complaints in a public forum. We always had visitors from the public that were there. The complaints would be identified so that if your complaint came up, you would know which meeting to be at. We would have a discussion, and with some of those complaints, we could make a decision and a determination, and the commission could send out a letter.
So are you saying that the chairman has privatized the process?
It's not, I wouldn't use that term, but it's been reorganized so that now we have a complaint screening committee. There are 3 standing committees, and one of them is a complaint screening committee. They will report back to the commission after they've given a report.
But you voted that as a policy?
Yes.
We accepted it.
We accepted it as a part of the compromise. That then goes to an investigation panel, which again, the 3 members are appointed by the chair. They will deliberate on the investigation and report back to the commission.
But why wasn't that all decided when the commission was established? Because they can just arbitrarily go and change the time.
The commission was given a lot of flexibility when the commission was established.
But typically there is a meeting time when you establish the initial rules, and then they.
No, there's not a single agency or commission that we have that we, as the legislature, establish all their internal rules.
It's not the rules, it's the establishment of the agency, particularly the times that they need to meet, because obviously.
We don't do that with any commission.
Well, we may not, but typically, if you establish the organization, there should have been some type of time when they meet by statute as to when they should meet.
The legislature doesn't get that specific with a commission, any commission. We've always allowed that commission to establish its own internal.
Well, I beg to differ. We can be very specific.
We can be. I'm just saying typically we
And
don't.
part of what we're discussing now is whether or not we need to be very specific with this particular commission, because it seems to have not done anything productive since August of last year, because it's been in political turmoil over rules and procedures which were more or less established.
And it does establish what the members should be. Now, this may be typically who you talked about what the chairman should be, or it typically will designate what would happen, not just here, but and if it's not, I think that if we establish a commission like that, then the legislature needs to do that.
And I'm not saying we don't have the authority to
not
do
the authority.
that.
And then, Mr. Chairman, too, We can't, because you keep saying that the chairman of the committee, Mr. Bradley, and the committee coordinator refused to come. Is there a penalty for that?
No, well, let me just, I haven't said they refused to come, they just are not here.
But why weren't they
They
here?
have not answered that question, they didn't give me an explanation.
So that meant that they
Prior
refused to
commitment.
come if they didn't show up.
Prior
They
commitment.
said prior commitment in the response.
Mr. Bradley had a prior commitment.
Okay, thank you.
Now, here's my written question, and I've already written the answer.
You better get it right.
Power of the chairman and the commission members. Do you feel that the commission as a whole has had its power at all restricted since the change as chairman? If so, how do you indicate that has occurred? And that's what we've been talking about. Your power has been restricted. You're not doing your investigations. You've changed things up. So I answered it yes. Because what I've heard you say over and over again, that you're caught up in this quagmire of delays, and you have all these very important investigations that are pending, and you hadn't completed your work in 7 or 8 months.
We hadn't completed work because we hadn't been permitted to meet. So we met in July. A meeting was scheduled for October, and it was cancelled a few days before the October meeting.
Who canceled the meeting?
Well, when the commission chair was removed and the new chair was appointed, it was the decision of the new chair not to have the meeting.
The new chair canceled the already scheduled October meeting because the new chair wasn't ready to chair the meeting?
Correct.
Was that the
He
reason?
said that he needed to get caught up on up to speed on.
And so that was in October, and it took 3 months, a quarter of a year, for the chairman to get ready to conduct the meeting?
The next meeting was January.
All right. What do you think?
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
May I just address this timeliness issue with the screening panels and the committees? We have yet to see whether that will delay things. I wouldn't describe that as a quagmire. I mean, there may be some skepticism from members of the commission about whether or not this will in fact make the process more efficient. However, we have to try this to see if it will work. I mean, Chairman Bradley clearly believes this will make this a more efficient process, and we have a responsibility to try it. Now, at the meeting that we have scheduled for the end of this month, those committees and investigation panels will report back, but we don't know what they're going to report back because now they're just 3 members of the commission, so we're not part of that discussion. So I would hate for you to go away from this hearing thinking that the next meeting will be unproductive, because I think it will be a very productive meeting.
Well, I would think that if they would to tell you tomorrow what they're going to bring before your hearing, then you'd be better prepared for your hearing. But if they give it to you the day before or the whatever, there's no way you're going to be prepared or can move the ball. And that's what I see as a delay. I'm not very happy on just what you all have been saying here today about how the commission is functioning. It's very disappointing to me. It's a total surprise that maybe you haven't gone a little, our doors are always open, any one of you. And I'll say that to you now about trying to move the ball to do the job that the legislation was intended. And so you need to feel free to call us and tell us, hey, how do we need to speed this process up? How do we need to improve the service to the public? So, have y'all adopted a parliamentary procedure rule? What parliamentary procedures do you follow?
We were functioning under
Robert's Rules of Order. So you adopted that?
Recently. And then the new policies and procedures were a deviation from that. As I mentioned earlier, the original proposal gave the chair unilateral decision-making authority, but we made those changes so that those decisions have to then be approved by the commission.
Okay. We have There's how many members on the commission?
9.
9. And there's 2 of you here, so there's 7. Is there a divisive vote? Is it 5-2, or is it 4-3? Is it unanimous? Or, I mean, do we need to ask for everybody to come here, all 9? Will we get a clearer understanding? I mean, that's just hard to believe that.
The question, with regard to what question?
Well, with regard to your organization, you know, about, it looks to me like you're not going to ever get to the bottom of what your job is what you just described.
Well, we have, because we've received 20 complaints, and we have identified 3 that are actual investigations. So you have to remember that we've dealt with an awful lot of investigations in a short period of time.
Tell us about the 3 investigations that you're looking at and dealing with, and are they on the agenda for the
If you
23rd?
right, I'd qualify that if it doesn't interfere with the secrecy of the investigation. Is that fair?
Sure, but I'm assuming that it's already been on the agenda and they're identified.
Well, I don't think we can discuss the content of the complaints, but I can list you the 3 complaints.
That's what I'm asking
Yeah.
for.
It's the Moon investigation, the Willingham investigation, and we have an anonymous complaint that is still pending, that is in the process of being investigated. So those are the 3 complaints that I'm referring to. Now, they're not on the agenda. There's an investigation panel for Moon, an investigation panel for Willingham, and I don't believe there is one for the anonymous complaint.
Okay, so here goes to the heart of my concern. When I talk about privatizing the process, you now have an investigation panel of, 3 looking at case A, and a different set of 3 looking at case B, and a different set of 3 looking at case C, that are all 3 investigations pending. How do we know what's going on in those investigations, and what is the public's right to know in these investigations?
Well, all of those documents are subject to open records. So there are no documents or communications between the commission members that aren't privy to the public. It's all completely open and absolutely transparent.
And so what happens if one of these investigation panels comes to the commission as a whole with a recommendation? If you're not comfortable with that recommendation, what, as a commission member, are you able to do?
You could vote against it.
There'd be open debate on whatever that subcommittee brings forward. That'll be debated among all commissioners.
So that material will get to you more than a day or 2 in advance, so you have an opportunity to review it?
Well, we don't have a set deadline, do we? I don't think there's a set deadline when we will see that before the commission meets.
And if there were a case, as a commissioner, if I were asked to make a decision on a case as a forensic scientist, and I'm one of a few forensic scientists on the commission, so I have knowledge of the topic that other commissioners don't have, I would make a motion that we don't make a decision, because that would be unethical. How could you make a decision on a complaint if you haven't reviewed it?
Of the 3 commissioners that are handling the investigation on the Willingham case, how many of them are forensic trained individuals?
Chairman Bradley identified tentatively 3 individuals himself. Dr. Pirwani.
In Art.
No, and myself.
And you.
And Dr. Pirwani is a medical examiner in Tarrant County.
I'm familiar with Dr. Pirwani. Thank you.
I'm headed to Longview. Thank y'all for coming. Any other comments or questions?
I just want to say thank you for coming here and shedding some light on this. Quite honestly, I didn't expect the discussion to be this in-depth today. Didn't realize there were any of these issues actually going on, and that's why it's important for the committee and various commission members and officers of that commission to communicate. And we appreciate your time coming here today and enlightening us.
And given that you're going to have another hearing, may I make a recommendation that you have the previous commission chair attend that hearing too? Because just as Gary can talk about the history of the commission, nobody's probably more qualified to talk about that than Sam Bassett, our previous chair, who provided excellent leadership for the commission during those years. The leadership style has changed, but we still are optimistic that we will make the same progress that we did under Chairman Bassett's direction.
I believe as a commissioner, too, it would be in the very best interest of the Texas Forensic Science Commission to continually have discussions and reports and liaison with both the Senate and the House committees on public safety. You have purview over us. I think it's a great opportunity for you to find out what's going on and how we can make lots of progress. We're very sincere about our roles and the responsibilities that we have. I just say every commission member that I know. Remember, we have some new ones we're still getting to know. So we're all highly committed.
You know, first of all, I feel responsible that we didn't take this issue up during the regular session, that we would have maybe been having hearings even last year, you know, because it's something that looks to me like it's a great opportunity and a service to the citizens of the state. We just need to make sure that you're off and running and that we're not having the delays. And I commend you on your service to the state and for your you know, hard work on this issue. This was not intended to try to you know, rake anybody over the coals. This was a fact finding for me as a chairman, and like the vice chairman said, I wasn't here when they drafted this law, and so when all of a sudden I find out that there may be a policy about who you can speak to and a policy over what you can control your own email, and I'm thinking, wait a second, you know, are we here to serve the people and get the job done? Are we here to throw up roadblocks to, you know, to prevent you from doing your job? And what I'm hearing is that it looks obvious to me that there being roadblocks thrown up to prevent you from doing the job that you could have done a year ago. And you know, I apologize to you that on behalf of Tommy Merritt and the committee that we hadn't been on top of it. And we will assure you we'll do a better job. And I look forward to more than one hearing. I think we'll be here several times, just because if you have the time. And that's something else for y'all that's very important for us. But, you know, we take away from our important duties to serve the people, and we expect you to match what we're trying to do. And that's our disappointment in, you know, in Chairman Bradley. Yeah, Chairman Bradley could have called me any time last week, and I polled my committee about which is the best day for everyone to be here. And this was a good day. I mean, we almost had a full committee. And so they're very interested in the job that you're doing, and we hope we'll have a better committee. But it's disappointing when the chairman says, you know, I'm reluctant, I have a conflict. And he could have phoned me and said, I have a conflict back in March 25th and said, you know, I don't have a good date, these are good dates. So as we have hearings, we may ask you what are good dates for you. But then again, I have to make sure I have a full panel. They're the most important to me first, to make sure they're here. And then I look at all the other witnesses that came, and they have just as important jobs to do, and they were here. And out of respect to the committee, and hopefully we will see the respect that this committee deserves from Chairman Bradley and from Ms. Tomlin. And if she doesn't understand that, then hopefully someone informs her that we have questions that we want to have answered. And if the committee doesn't have the answers, then they rewrite the law to where they get the answers, or, you know, and I think that's what we're here to look at. Just so that's our prerogative, and to make the improvements that you'd like us to see. So thank y'all very much, and thanks to the members of the Committee on Public Safety stands adjourned to further call the chair.